Combin on the air. Thanks for tuning into Instagram Growth Podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all of the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best Instagram marketer that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we are going to show you how. Now, let's get started. Have you ever logged onto Facebook only to come across an advertisement for something you just searched on Google? Or maybe you use social media to promote your business and have spent hours designing content and establishing social media presence just to find that constant algorithm changes leave you feeling frustrated and exhausted? So if your answer is yes, then you are not alone. Ladies and gentlemen, here is your host Anne, and I'm more than happy to be here today talking about social media fatigue that many of you might have already experienced or are experiencing right now. So if you're starting to feel burnout by social media use, I hope focusing on this concept will give you a bit more insight into how it can impact you and give you a few ideas to prevent or maybe recover from this form of burnout. Forrest Tuff is my guest for today, and I'm excited to welcome you to the show, Forrest.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Oh, that's cool. So could you please tell me a bit more about yourself and your background?
Well, my background of my business is in media production. So we do a lot of marketing and branding for corporate organizations, government agencies, and we also work in the film and TV industry. So that's where we kind of focus our stuff on the production, the branding and marketing with other companies.
And how long are you in marketing and in social media marketing in particular?
So we've been doing this now since 2004. And, since the advent of really social media really coming alive in 2009, we've had a real focus with helping that with other companies and their social media presence.
What social media platforms does your business actually use?
Well, we use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Okay, and so have you ever experienced social media fatigue?
Yes, I have.
So in your point of view, so could you please give me a kind of definition for this social media fatigue?
Well, social media fatigue for me is just that feeling of when you're kind of exhausted or you're just overwhelmed with, the amount of content that's constantly coming in from social media and just feeling exhausted from creating content. That's how I define social media fatigue.
And when you're feeling social media fatigue, do you feel it like from one particular social media network or from all social media?
Pretty much all social media. And it varies because social media platforms are different. And sometimes you find yourself having to create content in a different way for different sites. And so sometimes that fatigue can come from maybe one site and you're like, oh, I'm kind of burnt out here. I want to go use this other site. And then there are times where you're just totally fatigued from social media, period.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And how do you think, where does it come from? I mean, social media fatigue. So what are the most common reasons people get exhausted from social media?
I think from the concept of always having to be on. And when I say that, I mean, you're always showing your best face on social media. I think there comes a time when you're trying to, as a business, you're trying to market and show things about your company. You're trying to show the successes of your company to attract new clients. And you're also trying to find a way to be transparent without, being overly negative. So it's just the constant branding. There's no downtime. It seems like there's always the on time. You're constantly on. So it's trying to find that balance. And I think that's some of the reasons you can get exhausted, just constantly trying to show your best self and, always look the way you want to attract the customers you want as far as social media is concerned.
And how can you achieve this balance?
Sometimes you just have to pull away. There are times when, you're posting content and, you may feel like you're overwhelming your followers. And, sometimes you just have to pull away. You have to create a social media schedule. There are companies, and sometimes the companies create social media posts for different ways. They use analytics to know, hey, this is the best time to do it, and this is the best time not to, and these are the peak hours, and this is when certain people are engaged. But I think if you find yourself in the place where you're fatigued, you have that social media fatigue, it's best sometimes to pull away, to give yourself a break from social media, to refresh yourself doing other things. And I think that can help you stay effective when you post content.
And do you personally have this social media schedule?
Yes, I use a schedule to post, and it's different for different sites. I have a different, there are peak hours for different sites on as far as Facebook and LinkedIn. There are different times that I like to post, but that is kind of what I've used to have the success that I've had with my social media presence.
And in general, so how many hours a day or maybe a week you spend on social media, on all social media websites?
I would say for me at this point, for all social media websites, and I'm looking at 4 sites, there's, like I say, there's Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Some of the things that I post on Instagram and Twitter are synonymous. So I would say for me, in terms of posting for business, I would say about an hour. I try to limit that to about an hour of my time. And it's, succinct information that I'm putting out for a certain demographic that I'm trying to reach.
And what about personal use?
For personal use, I've limited that more so simply because my focus has turned to business. So I had to limit my personal use because that was the thing that would take the most time. You could find yourself scrolling on TikTok or, Instagram, just watching these videos, and they're amusing, and you realize, okay, I need to make sure that I'm kind of pinning that time down. So I would actually say, really, to be honest with you, I find myself either 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes just using it for personal use. And I've had to be careful because, you find yourself amused with this stuff, and that's where that fatigue comes in. You find yourself disinterested with the work part, and you get the entertaining stuff, and you're like, oh, this is amazing. So that's why I try to limit it to, let's say, no more than 2 hours. I try to balance that out. An hour personal, an hour of professional time.
Yeah. Okay. And so you said that you have experienced this social media fatigue. So could you tell me, please, a bit more about your experience and what did you do to cope with this social media fatigue?
Okay. Actually, it really hit in 2020. As we know, we all were hit with, coronavirus, and we had to really change the way we did business. So everything went to social media. It went online. We went virtual. So I spent now 100% of my time virtually in terms of my business and even, just social gatherings. So what ended up happening for me is that I became so fatigued with the constant showing of business, and sometimes you can feel guilt. You're like, oh, I'm just always putting out content, and I want to make sure that people are engaged and not overwhelmed. So, I started to feel that, you can feel that social media guilt even as a person that posts. And so for me, it was just totally being consumed with, I'm also a public speaker. So I'm doing virtual conferences. I'm speaking. Everything's virtual. There's no longer the in-person contact. So at the end of 2020, I just felt like, the curtain was lifted, or I was just so exhausted from social media. And in 2021, I had to become very purposeful about the content. So I just limited my time, at the very start of this year.
Yeah, I got you. So I experienced almost the same that you just described because, yes, in 2020, everything went online. So we also started work from home, and I'm as a social media manager. So I spend most of my time online. And in 2020, I started to spend 100% of my time online. Yeah, I also experienced kind of this social media fatigue, but actually I also found the way to kind of get relaxed. And I also taught myself to make some pauses during my work. And if I'm starting to feel something like social media fatigue, I say, okay, and stop. Let's stop all this activity and let's do something else. Let's go for sports or let's go for a walk. Let's do something else in order not to get into this state again. So I know there are people that have not experienced social media fatigue. So what would you recommend to these people in order not to experience it?
I mean, you said it best. You pull away, you find other things to do, especially for some people. Some people are alone. They were alone during this time. And some people had families. In my particular situation, I had family. So I had to pull away. We had to find times that when we ate It's like, hey, everybody cut everything off. We're not streaming. We're not doing anything. And, we're going to eat. We're going to talk. We're going to look at each other and we're going to have human interaction. And, once again, I recognize that's not the same for everyone. So if you are in a situation where you are alone, it's a little different. You may not have those people to talk to, but, you can still pull back. And like you say, you can go take walks. You can read a book. It's nothing wrong with meditating, praying, just taking some quiet time to, just reflect on where you want to be. This is a great time to, focus on your fitness. So those were some things. And, one of the things that we also did is we had family game time. We played board games. We played other games that didn't require, electronics, maybe card games or things that allowed us to use our interaction with each other. So I think that really helped to pull back from that social media and really interact in my family environment. That really helped me to take a break.
Yeah, nice tips. Thank you so much. So how can my audience learn more about you and what you offer?
Well, you can go to my website. It's forresttuff.com, and that's FORRESTTUFF.com. And from there, you can find links to my business, my film industry, my public speaking, my books, anything that is related to me. You can find it there in all my social media links at forresttuff.com.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was a pleasure to talk to you today. And my last question for you is, what message would you like to leave my listeners with? Maybe you have kind of motto that helps you go through the life.
Yeah. Find happiness. And it's not tied into social media. Your happiness is not tied into social media. There was life before social media and we existed great. We have so much information, but if I could leave you with one thing, I would say your happiness is not tied into your social media. Find those things that bring you joy.
Thank you so much once again. It was fun.
Yeah, it was great being here. Thank you for having me.
This is a podcast sponsored by Combin.com. Grow and manage your Instagram safely and organically with Combin Growth and Combin Scheduler. Instagram promotion is easy. Combin.com.